短短溜溜的照在康定溜溜的窗游，月亮弯弯，康定溜溜的窗游，离家溜溜的大姐，人才溜溜的好友，张家溜溜的大哥，看上溜溜的他哟。
With all due respect, what the fuck?
Marvel's Echo is the latest batch of eye cancer on Disney+, showing us the epic adventures of the mighty Maya Lopez, one of the most unreasonable assholes I've ever seen, and continuing the pattern of having no idea what makes a hero, as the era of entitled characters with no accountability is in full swing, and the thought of exploring any type of moral ethics is a thing of the past. Wanda Maximoff had the trauma of spending days next to a Stark missile, wondering if at any moment it was going to explode and finish off the rest of her family, justifying her grudge against Tony Stark and the Avengers, and adding a grey nature to her story, making it easy to stay invested in her journey.
We wait for 2 days for Tony Stark to kill us.
Maya is a diabolical little shit that likes to hurt animals and kick people when they're down. She puts her family in danger and doesn't care about anyone but herself. But none of it's her fault, you see, because the Kingpin killed her father. Where have I seen that before? Matt Murdock had his world changed forever by losing his vision, affecting him throughout his entire life, and developing an issue with alcohol to cope with the stress of his senses, and essentially having to lie to his best friend for years in order to hide his abilities.
All these years I actually felt sorry for you.
I didn't ask for that. I never asked for that.
Maya is deaf and crippled. And if it wasn't for the fact that the show crammed it down our throats during the marketing, you could have easily forgotten, as it had almost no effect on the plot. Not a single scene of her reading lips or being held back by her handicaps. They were way more concerned with making her perfect than actually using the built-in concept of the character. So now we have a one-legged woman fighting like a super soldier instead of explaining how any of this is possible. Natasha Romanoff joined S.H.I.E.L.D. and eventually the Avengers to try to bring some balance to her bloody past, after years in the Red Room working as an assassin. And the guilt of her former life pushes her to fight for a brighter future.
I got red in my ledger. I'd like to wipe it out.
Maya worked for the Kingpin for years, doing all kinds of dirty jobs, and she doesn't give a shit about any of the people that she killed or the life that she used to lead, and neither does the show. And just like Killmonger, and Reva, and Gravik, Maya takes no accountability for her actions and blames everyone else for her problems. It's a deep-rooted pattern at this point where we can't tell the difference between the heroes and the villains, desperately trying to construct redemption stories for monstrous characters without even understanding their journeys and just how much they make no sense.
You have no rights here. We're not under the Empire's...
Terrible characterization is almost standard at Disney these days, but it's the quality of the fights that is also starting to suffer. And when you consider the fact that this series is connected to Daredevil, you would expect the same attention to detail in the choreography. And instead, we got one of the best modern examples of a Mary Sue, pushing plot armor to its limits and creating a fight scene almost too stupid to be real. And I want to discuss a scene that reminds us just how effective a realistic fight can be, and what happens when you focus on character. So let's compare a fight scene with MI6 agent Lorraine from Atomic Blonde and see how she fares against the Queenpin. From the very moment the character is introduced, they make a clear effort to highlight the toll that this job takes on her body, starting her day with ice baths and shots of vodka, and showing the bruises all over her skin. We get a summary of her credentials and skill set as she is sent to Berlin on a mission to investigate the death of an agent, and bring back a man by the name of Spyglass who possesses vital information. And after acquiring her target and walking right into an ambush, we get to see how she adapts to the situation, using the protesting crowd to her advantage to block the vision of the snipers above.
This was never part of the plan.
It was part of mine.
But she is double-crossed and forced to rush Spyglass to safety, making it clear to him that they won't make it unless she does something about the shooters. So after confirming which building they are in, she makes her way up the elevator to confront them, as we get a small moment to see her gathering her thoughts and settling her nerves. The calm before the storm. She fires the first shots and then takes cover as one slowly approaches and the other calls backup. We see her training put into action as she lands a gut shot and disarms the first man, knocking the gun off the ledge. She tries her best to separate the two men, but is still overwhelmed in a 1v2 situation. She takes advantage of the first guy being wounded and desperately fights back with elbows and kicks him down the stairs to create distance. But even with a bullet in his stomach, they display his willpower and the reality of the situation as he ragdolls her and tosses her down the stairs. And as the three of them try to catch their breath, she cleverly strikes him in his wound and continues to try to create distance between them. But even after stabbing him 5 times, they show just how much she has to struggle to put him down. And even filled with holes, this beast of a man still tries to keep fighting, until succumbing to his wounds as well. She then does what so many movies fail to have their character do. She looks for a better weapon, and after only managing to find an empty rifle, she continues the mission. And we see her use the same efficient tactic, as she violently disarms her opponents and kills them on the spot before proceeding. She grabs Spyglass as the backup arrives, and she does her very best to take them out before running out of ammo. And after hearing him try to reload his gun, she viciously assaults him with her empty pistol. Then he does what so many movies fail to have their characters do. He tries to pick up a gun and his ammo, only to be tackled by a bloodied Lorraine. We have seen her skills and strategies on display, but now we get an insight into her tenacity and the damage she is willing to take to complete these missions, reminding us of the wounds in her opening scene, as we see her utterly exhausted but still reaching for a weapon. She ends the fight as we see Spyglass in the back, wrapping up his wounds with duct tape after trying to help her. They make their way out of the building and immediately run into a cop. But Lorraine isn't taking any more shit, so she steals his vehicle right on the spot. Another highlight of how seriously she takes her job. The windows in the back get shot out as they try to make their escape, providing a clear line of sight for her to take her shot. In a nearly suicidal tactic, she gambles everything on reversing into traffic to try to get away from the pursuers. And despite all her hard work, she is forced to watch Spyglass drowned. After claiming she would keep him safe, she fails her mission and barely escapes with her life. A shocking ending to an incredible fight scene, but why is it well written? In the age of trying to gender swap heroes and desecrating the stories of iconic characters in order to prop up generic replacements, I think it's really important to praise the movies that had the courage to create their own original characters. From Lara Croft to G.I. Jane to The Bride from Kill Bill, stories that featured fantastic female characters, rather than strong female leads. And Atomic Blonde is one of the best examples, showing an agent that's willing to stop at nothing to complete a mission, while still displaying the complexities of a woman and the obvious disadvantages she would have in this line of work. While other stories would be too afraid of showing her being vulnerable and dispatching opponents of any size with ease, Lorraine is a reminder of just how dedicated you'd have to be to survive a life like this. And rather than breaking the plot to benefit her, or making the people around her stupid in order for her to proceed, we get to see her live up to her reputation, using everything from sex appeal to brute force in order to get the job done. Tactically creating enough distance between the two men to make a 1v2 possible in that situation, and using anything she could find to her advantage. Instead of being afraid to mess up her makeup, they make a point to show the damage she has taken throughout the entire movie, helping to ground the fight scenes by actually having consequences, and being completely willing to show her fail her mission just to see how it affects her character.
I think I understand everything. You made your plan, and you failed to get the high-value asset safely across to the west.
And this is the kind of substance that is lost when your only concern is making a girl boss and you forget to write an actual character. Something that Disney desperately needs to remember how to do. Now, let's compare that to Echo. Maya Lopez was an adorable little girl who had the misfortune of being born deaf and losing her leg and mother in a car crash. And after the mysterious death of her father, she is adopted by the Kingpin. A wonderful base for a sympathetic character that they somehow managed to botch at every turn. So instead of showing her learn to overcome her disabilities and find her passion for martial arts, they go out of their way to show that she's been amazing from the very start. No montage of her overcoming adversity, nothing. I'm not sure there's a single line of dialogue to explain how she manages to do this, and it makes it really difficult to take her scenes seriously. Instead of using her time with the Kingpin as a catalyst for her corruption, they show her affinity for violence from a very young age. A completely bizarre choice for a character we're supposed to like.
Good.
She spent years as a killer, working for the Kingpin and treating him like an uncle, until she discovers that he killed her father. And after exacting her revenge by shooting him in the face, she has finally returned to her hometown. But instead of reuniting with lost loved ones and putting the past behind her, she's way more concerned with wiping out his whole operation, and is willing to use her family members to get the supplies and information she needs, never once showing an ounce of gratitude or a desire to keep them from danger. So after showing her face to the wrong people, she is captured by a group of hillbillies, and we see her tied up and held for ransom at her uncle's club. And my mind immediately runs to the amazing escape scenes of the past, showing all the different ways I've seen people fight for their freedom. It could be as simple as fleshing out a character, or it could be an amazing payoff, but they're almost always enjoyable. So she's tied in the middle of the room, and almost as if they want us to immediately know just how stupid these people are, these morons decided to tie her fake leg to the rope. So after just a mild struggle, it pops right off and she falls down, and they decide it's a better idea to tie her up and put her in the storage room this time. But just before they do, they make sure to show us that the fat one grabs her foot. Does she have a shoe fetish? Did she just want to whiff? What the hell is the point of this scene? What are you doing with her shoe? So they tie her up again and then argue over who's gonna watch her, meaning that they were willing to kidnap her before even making a plan.
All you do is sit outside that door. What are you, scared?
I will babysit her since you two are too chicken shit. Fine.
But just before they head out, Big Chungus decides to give her back her foot. Why? Why the fuck would you do this? She is literally your hostage. Why would you give her back the one thing she needs to possibly escape? And then it hits me. That's why they tied her up that way in the first place. Just to have this stupid scene. Why else would a group that doesn't even have a plan for guarding their hostage go through all that effort to tie her to a roof? Stupid, stupid, stupid.
Dispatch? Dispatch, Mr. Pope.
Maya's drama has not only put her uncle in danger, but now her cousin Bonnie as well, when she shows up to the club to look for her and she gets caught up in the chaos. And after being as close as sisters in their youth, Maya hasn't seen her in over 20 years. So now we have an incredible opportunity for not only a proper reunion, but to see these two girls put their brain together to try to escape. Well, fuck that I guess. Maya uses the shoe to cut her way out. Good thing she got it back, or she'd be so screwed right now. Now only if she could find some scissors. What the hell is this easy mode bullshit? Everything she needs at a convenient distance.
I swear I heard something. It might be loose.
Quickly, though. He's almost here.
The hillbillies head back into the room after hearing the noise, and instead of holding her down and tying her up, They are far too afraid of the mighty Maya, so they ask Bonnie to tell her to do it herself.
Huh?
I'm not making this up. They're actually this stupid. And as the girls argue and complain, Bonnie and Maya make a plan right in front of them to escape.
They weren't supposed to be fighting each other.
Go!
We need her alive. Let's get out of here. Come on.
And once again, not a single ounce of urgency on Maya's face to save her cousin. They are more concerned with her being intimidating than being a human. It's completely insane. So since they never bothered to restrain her, she gets to work, rummaging through the supplies and conveniently building everything from weapons to explosives because this room magically has whatever she needs. And even though she knows Maya is not restrained and possibly armed at this point, this round motherfucker is on her phone instead of guarding the hostage, almost as if they haven't been embarrassed enough by the previous scenes. The writers go out of their way to make sure we know that they're completely brain dead. And just when the supply room couldn't get any more convenient, Maya uses the mirrors to have a perfect angle to take her shot, and shoots out the lights above her. And instead of immediately calling backup, Hot Pie decides to go in and try to 1v1 her, even though they just established that they need her alive so she can't use her gun. What the fuck is your plan, woman? So of course, she goes in and gets dumpstered by Maya, like anything else was gonna happen. The goons arrive to collect the bounty, and as they're negotiating, they find out that Maya has escaped. So they dim the lights and break out the diegetic soundtrack, because it's time to rip off John Wick. So somehow Maya knows the whole layout of the building and had the time to rig the place without being seen. And through the power of crappy editing, we get to see her stealthily take out a group of thugs like she's Batman. And instead of filming it in a way that provides the details of each exchange, or explaining how she is able to avoid detection, she basically just pops up next to each of them and knocks them to the floor. John knowing the doorman was enough for me to believe that he knew the layout of the club, making his fight scene way more believable. But Maya hasn't been here in 20 years and was just trapped in a storage room, yet somehow she knows exactly where to go. I can at least appreciate the fact that she's smart enough to use stealth, as it would be really stupid just to fight out right in the What? She dives right into the middle of the room, making it perfectly clear that the stealth in the previous scene, instead of being a tactical choice from an experienced assassin, was just the writers trying to show her off. And instead of just immediately shooting her in the face, they put half the room on pause. Like, look at this. Look at this stupid fool just standing there doing his grocery list instead of reacting. But there's one thug, armed with a pistol, who managed to avoid the oppression of the pause button. But somehow he loses to a weapon she managed to build in a closet out of a box of scraps, because Maya is just that damn good. So she takes his gun and decides to show them all how it's done. And in one of the most obnoxious displays of auto-aim you will ever see, she lands a triple kill. 3 headshots in a row before they could even pull the trigger. This woman is surrounded with no cover, yet nobody is able to land a single shot on her. And then they do the thing where everyone forgets that a gun is a ranged weapon, and decides to run right up on her so we can get our hand-to-hand combat portion of the fight. She runs out of ammunition and gets slammed on a machine, but instead of showing us her efficient grappling skills, she overpowers the man and lands a German suplex instead. And rather than the incredible long shots that made Daredevil famous, we are forced to watch the sloppy mess as they shamelessly chop up the scene to cover up the crappy choreography. She lands a headbutt and effortlessly throws him onto the table, and then she turns to knock out the other guy, disarming him and setting the gun several feet behind him. In the very next frame, the gun is magically in her hand so the fight can continue, because fuck you. And the same fool who is doing his grocery list finally gets into the fight. And then they have the audacity to show that this man is holding a gun. Meaning that not only did he not shoot her at the very start, but he decided to rugby tackle her instead of using his weapon.
What the hell are you? No!
It's the sign of a truly terrible scene, when everyone has to be completely retarded or on pause for it to function. So the mighty Maya continues to batter the men with her bare hands. Then, instead of just shooting her, they stand there once again and watch her rip out the arcade cords. She hits one of them with a front kick, and he just dies of internal bleeding or something, and then lands a critical strike with the cord on the second one, knocking him out. Then the next wave of enemies spawn, but this time around the thugs didn't even bother with the guns, so Maya just throws some balls at them and they die. And then after everything she has been through, she still has the energy to batter a man twice her size and make him knock himself out with her sleeve. I immediately assume that she slipped the ball into her sleeve and that's what hit him, but then she drops it right after. I have absolutely no idea what happened to this guy, so I'm gonna have to assume that his name was in someone's death note and he died from a heart attack. And now the moment has come, as Bonnie is captured and used to pressure Maya, like the hillbilly should have done in the first place. And after promising to strike a deal, Maya is double-crossed and forced to watch her cousin Bonnie and Uncle Henry get murdered, a tragic element to balance out the fight scene, and forcing Maya to reevaluate every choice that led to this moment. No, that would make too much sense, wouldn't it? So instead, they get a call from the Kingpin, who is somehow still alive, and is the ultimate simp for Maya, even after she tried to kill him, and everyone just fucks off and leaves. No meaningful payoffs, no lessons, no sacrifices. Maya dominates the entire building and gets off with less than a slap on the wrist, because failure is not an option for a Mary Sue. Easily the worst escape scene of all time, and one of the crappiest fights in recent memory. But why is it terribly written? This show is one of the best examples of the message being prioritized over the writing. With the hyper-focus around her disabilities being used to promote the show, you would think at the very least it would be explained within the story. Like Daredevil, developing his abilities and getting a clear understanding of what he's capable of through the events of the season. Or how about Vader, forced to live in a suit for the rest of his life after the battle on Mustafar, no longer possessing the mobility of a prime Anakin and forced to adapt to a new reality. There's so many different ways they could have used this concept, but Echo decided to do absolutely nothing. The only thing that they establish is the bullshit power to call upon her ancestors for cheat codes whenever she's in trouble, which you see her tap into during the train heist. But that is not a factor in this scene or any of her fights, nor does it explain her ability to brawl like a super soldier and take virtually no damage. Lorraine was a bloody mess at the end of her fight scene because they put the effort in to show just exactly what she endured and was forced to overcome. Instead of rapidly cutting the camera to make her look like a monster, we're able to follow the flow of the action and assess her tactics. But with Echo, not only does she fight like a barbarian instead of an assassin, she barely has a scratch on her after taking on the same amount of opponents. Lorraine's transition from stealth to brawling was forced upon her after backup arrived. Maya burst through a wall into a room full of armed thugs just to show off. And instead of the valiant effort of the enemies in Atomic Blonde, immediately calling for backup and fighting to their last breath, we get death by front kick, cord slaps, teleporting pistols, a room full of guys who don't know how to use a gun, and the legend of Grocery Man.
Pick up some bread, fucking milk.
But I think the most frustrating part is just how predictable it all is. Where with Atomic Blonde, I wasn't even sure if Lorraine was going to make it past the first two guys, and I definitely didn't expect the scene to end with her miserable failure, but it instantly made her a more interesting character. But the only goal of this scene was to show just how amazing Maya is, and it's gotten to the point where actresses like Emily Blunt are refusing scripts that say strong female lead, because she wants to play a character, not a symbol. Where we have actresses like Evangeline Lilly calling out Disney for their bullshit.
I've been pestering Marvel Studios about their female characters. We're all very kick-ass, very responsible women who make sure that we keep the boys in line and we do everything perfectly. When I look around at the women in my life, there are so many other colors.
But Disney's psychotic insecurity has ruined their ability to make them, as if oppression is the only story that you can tell about a woman. completely ignoring the humanizing moments that we've seen them go through in the past that made these characters so compelling, and replacing them with unstoppable, emotionless assholes that can do no wrong and handle any problem that the plot provides. Maya would have definitely saved Spyglass and taken out the whole building with just an umbrella. She would have stopped Judgment Day by herself. She would have beaten Buck with her hands tied behind her back. She would have front-kicked the Xenomorph Queen off a cliff. She would have jumped to her feet and killed Bill in the opening scene, because she's just that amazing. Enough of this crap. How can there ever be stakes when you know they will never fail? There's nothing to be gained from a character as perfect as Maya, and if there's any future for this company, it's time for them to wake up and see that.
Stop it. Get some help.